You're tuning into the Journey to Your Best Self podcast, where we explore the past holistic well-being, personal growth, and living a fulfilling life. Each episode, we bring you insightful conversations, practical tools, and inspiring stories to help you integrate your mind, body, and spirit on your journey to becoming your best self. Let's dive in and embark on this journey together. And welcome back to another episode of the Journey to Your Best Self podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian O'Neill, joined by my sister, Tara, clinical hypnotherapist, certified life coach, and yoga instructor. Together, we'll be diving into inspiring conversations, practical insights to help you unlock your full potential, live authentically, and take actionable steps towards living your best self. Whether it's mind, body, or soul, we're here to guide you on your journey. Today, we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by someone who so extraordinary. His life story is nothing short of inspiring, and there's so many parts of it for us to delve into. Mr. John Brink, a testament to the power of resilience, discipline, and unwavering determination. From surviving World War II to building a business empire with just a small, and you'll find out the exact amount of money in his pocket, John's journey is filled with lessons on overcoming adversity and turning challenges into opportunities. John's not only a successful serial entrepreneur with over 10 companies under his belt, but also North America's oldest competitive bodybuilder at the age of 83. His journey with ADHD has fueled his innovative mindset, and his commitment to giving back is reflected in the millions he's donated to charitable causes. John's unique blend of grit, philanthropy, and entrepreneurial spirit perfectly aligns with your own self's ethos of personal growth, consistency, and resilience. Today we'll dive in how he cultivated his mindset, stayed adaptable in the ever-changing business world, and maintained his physical and mental health throughout it all. So that is longer intro than we're used to on the podcast, but I think it was well-deserved. Welcome aboard, Mr. John Brink.
Thanks, Brian, and Sarah. I really appreciate it. I was listening to your intro. I said, who is this guy? Because I want to get to meet him. But then I realized you were talking about me.
And he's got jokes too, so we're excited.
He does. Absolutely. Yeah, well, where to begin? It's been a long, productive, and just jam-packed filled life. And I can't help but think about your latest book that we had just talked about. If you have the cover there, Living Young, Dying Old, right? It's just talking to you and hearing you. You sound more dynamic and more fresh and more ready to go than most of the guests that we have on here. So I don't think it can be explained in one answer. But what's the secret, John? What is it that? Can you give us a little? Can you share a little? Give a
Attitude.
Okay.
I always avoid negative. Don't come around me with negative. Every day is a good day. If today is not so good, I know tomorrow will be. Passion. Once I start something, I give it 125%. Work ethic. I work harder than anybody, even at nearly 84. I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always think I'm late. I always make my bed. And that's what I do.
And so you were just holding up a number. Can you tell our audience what that number is and what it means? 25:47.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. Yeah, my employees gave this to me. Actually, I came to Canada in July 1965 from Holland. We were liberated by the Canadian Army during the Second World War. I can tell you a whole story about that. We saw far too much and hunger and all of those kind of things. But when the Canadians liberated us, and I was not quite 5 years old, I knew from that point forward I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And so I was going to go when I was 17. My parents wouldn't let me. I was drafted into the Dutch Air Force for 2 years. And then I left Holland when I was 23 years old in 1965. And I took with me one suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, very little money. And by the time I got to Canada and in Montreal, I took the train from Montreal to Vancouver. And my God, that is a long way. 4 days, 5 nights. Went to the immigration office there. I couldn't speak English. I didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. And fortunately, there was a German fellow there. And my other dream was to build a lumber mill. And he said, go to Prince George. That's where the lumber is. I did. And when I came off the bus in Prince George, with my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes. I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. And so that's how I started as a cleanup man. And then from there, and then within a year and a half, I was a superintendent of a sawmill, and on and on and on. And today, I own my lumber mills, a number of them actually, and a number of other companies. And so that's kind of what the story is.
So one of the things that, I'm thinking about what direction to take this in, one of the things that you mentioned, and you have mentioned recounting your journey, is the beginnings, right? How those first 5 years really kind of resonated with you and shaped you. Can you talk about, you said your heroes, kind of that liberation, and from kind of doing a little bit of research of my own, when the Canadians were kind of taking care, kind of building you guys back up after April of 45, right? It's so poignant how you talk about going to see the soldiers and to see that connection that you as a young child had with that peace that they brought there.
Yeah, for sure, Brian. Still very emotional to me, even still today, nearly 80 years later. So we were liberated. So my mom and dad were in love, and they got married in 1938, and everything was beautiful. They had a house. My dad was working on a career. Very quickly, they had 2 children, a boy and then a girl, and then she was pregnant with me in early 1940 when Hitler decided to invade the rest of Europe, take it over. My dad was drafted into the Dutch army, and the last they heard from him was that they had seen him in Rotterdam just before it got bombed. And for 5 years, they would not know if he was dead or alive. So my mom, then with 3 kids, the first thing that I remember is in 1943, when I was 3.5 years old, was hundreds of bombers overhead from the Allied forces. I was born in northeastern Holland, close to the German border, and my mom would take us outside, not to look at the beautiful plains, but rather she felt safer outside than inside. And in the distance, we could see the cities burning right across the border: Bremen, Kiel, Hamburg, all of those. The sky would be red. And then the winter of 1944-45, I remember, was the hunger winter. Hitler had cut off all the food supply to Holland, and in particular Northern Holland. A lot of kids died, thousands of them, and all the people that were vulnerable. And then the other one was the coldest winter on record, was the 1944-45. We as kids, my brother, my sister, and myself, being around close to 4.5 years old, every morning we would go with gunny sacks into the railroad yards, pick up anything edible and burnable. And so that's why did we as kids? Because they wouldn't shoot us, the Buddhist one, but we'll be back the following day. So I can still today, even 80 years later, feel hunger. And I still have PTSD as a result. In a child, I got counseling for the inner child actually in my 50s. So all of that still is very much part of me. And what I usually do at Liberation or Remembrance Day, the week of November the 11th, I always make a point that I talk to at least 4 schools here in British Columbia about why the 2 minutes of silence. Why is it so important?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Do you ever go back to the North Sea area region or to that area, or is it just in the past?
No. I still have an apartment there, actually, and I didn't go back during COVID, but I still have a sister there, and my parents are obviously gone now. But I still feel very good about it. But I'm a Canadian now, and I love Canada, and but I still have close connection to the Dutch and that part of Holland.
All right. Well, one of the things that we definitely want to talk to, we love giving kind of advice, actionable advice, and different strategies to our audience. And you said 5:30. One of the first things you said, getting up at 5:30. Has that been a mainstay throughout? Is that something that you feel is kind of vital to accomplish all the things that you always want to do? Start the day off early and get as much done as quickly as possible?
Yeah, I'm a routine guy, right? So I usually get up at 5:30, and if I do, I wake up and I always feel I'm late, so I don't know why. I've always had that. And then I'm in a hurry, and I always make my bed. That's probably what I have left over from my time in the Air Force.
Okay.
But that's what I do. And I don't think that many people that know me would say, oh, John was really upset and was not in good mood and he was down and out. No, I'm always the same, virtually, so yeah. I'm
And it
excited.
would absolutely. Is that just a Monday through Friday thing, or do you continue kind of with that kind of routine on weekends as well?
1 second, Brian. I
Sure.
just need my plug. Okay, we can continue. Yeah,
Sure.
I need
I was
my.
saying, does that consistency continue? In retirement on the weekends as well. You're not retired, of course, but
I was
is
going to
it
say,
just Monday through
what is
Friday?
retirement? Yeah, I'm always the same. So
Gotcha.
that I love to. You see, you talk about retirement. I would, to do what? So yeah. Well, then you finally can do what you like. Well, I'm doing that already. So I love it. The other part is that I don't think my wife would want to see me being retired. So she likes what I'm doing, and so that's yeah.
Wonderful. So I'm inspired. I love listening to you talk. I'm so grateful that you're here to enlighten us even further. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper in that. What would you like your ultimate legacy to be for others, for your followers, if you could sum it up in one or two or three things? We know positivity, we know consistency, we know passion. Is there anything else that you could add to that? And again, thank you so much. I'm so excited for you to be here.
Well, thanks, Sarah. From the time that I was in Holland, we always give back to the community and we stay involved in the community. That's what I still do today. I've always been involved. I always give back if I could, even in the toughest of times. I've always been involved to make sure that young people know, that there is a future. I've been very involved in the University of Northern British Columbia, small university, most popular one in Canada. I was very involved in getting that one off the ground. Then the college here in Northern BC, I was very involved in that. My name is on one of the buildings, the John Brink Trades and Technology Center. Sometimes the people drive by there and look at it and say, "Oh, when did he die?" Well, so because that are named after died. Well, I'm not going to die until I'm 120, so it's going to be around there for quite a while. So that's kind of what is important to me, is giving back, and then and staying very active, and then the other part that is important to me, when I fly around a lot in commercial flight. We do a lot of business in the United States. I'm also a pilot, but if I fly commercially, I always sit by the window and I look outside in North America, in between the US and Canada. I look outside, I say it's paradise. It is paradise. And I'm not sure how much we really collectively appreciate how beautiful it is and how fortunate we are in North America, the US and Canada. Politically, the US quite a bit different than ours, obviously. I don't want to go into the details, but you guys know what I'm talking about, likely. Is in Canada, politics is boring, so that is not the excitement. But we have a democratic country, and that is very, very fortunate. Hopefully, it remains that way, because if I compare it to Russia, Korea, China, on and on and on, and going Venezuela, Cuba, on and on and on, and then look at all the trouble that is going on in the Ukraine with the invasion of Russia, and then I look at the Middle East and all those poor people and the kids being affected by it, and saying, I look at us, how lucky we are. That's important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure. Absolutely. We have to be grateful of that.
Right. And that takes gratitude to a whole new level. And I should actually go back and correct my question, because I think your legacy has already begun. You've contributed over $10 million to charitable causes, $1 million donation to support the colleges you were speaking to. So your philanthropy is far and wide, but yet you have this humbleness to you to encourage people to stop and smell the roses, right? And just be in the moment. And that we are so grateful for looking outside. And I know the work that you do with the lumber and that is so, near and dear to my heart. Can you speak to that for a moment?
I believe in giving back. That is important. For me, it's not about money. It's about giving back. That is important. And then speaking to younger people in particular, and other people, that there's so many people in the world that are troubled by a number of things. That's why I'm so very active in podcasting. I think we have done close to 500 podcasts. I love that podcasting media. And so what I say, each one of you watching, that each individual is special in this world. Special. There's only one of you. Don't get preoccupied. This is not quite right. That's not quite right. And all of those kind of things are really not material. You are an individual that is special. And then give back wherever you can. Be respectful. And then leave the legacy of looking back. Not saying how much money you have. That is meaningless in my life, although it is part of my life, obviously. But what is most important is to be able to give back and inspire those that, because of circumstances, whatever they may be, are not as fortunate as I am, and then share it with others. And that's what I do in my podcast. That's what I do in my presentations that I do. And the other one is what has been important to me is, by pure coincidence, one day I found that I had ADHD, and it was not until January of 1997 that I walked into a store here. I picked up a book against, Driven to Distraction, written by Dr. Halliwell, and I looked at the book and I said, "Oh my God, this is me, ADHD." So I was 57 years old then. It took me 5 years to go to my doc. There was a personal friend that delivered my two daughters, and he said to me, "Hey, John, why are you here?" I said, "I think I got ADHD." And we looked at, yes, I do. So by then, the other thing, academically, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3. I failed grade 7 3 times. And they said, "What are you going to do with this guy?" Maybe some people said to my parents, "Send him to the mentally challenged school." They said, "No, we'll teach him a trade, and then he can become a tradesman." And so at 13, they send me to a furniture factory, and then at nights I would become a furniture maker. And so that's what I did. But kids are hard on each other. And so the friends that I had in grade 7 went on to college and university, and I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then it was kind of looked down at. And, but that kind of gave me the skill sets. So I'm a very good businessman. I can say that myself, obviously, been involved in all kinds of organizations and all the other things, but it makes me different in terms of that. Most people have been trained in business in the certain box of how to do business and become successful. I do different things. I taught myself, and I'm floating outside of the box and saying, if you do that, why not this way? Why not this? Why not that? It gave me the benefit of what I call the superpower, ADHD, and that has changed my life. And the other part that is important for me, there's still a lot of stigma surrounding ADHD. So I speak about it in different settings. I write about it because I call it unique. It is a superpower, or it can be, once you know it and can work within it. It gives you abilities that other people simply don't have. And the frequency of occurrence of ADHD much higher than most people ever thought it was. It's somewhere around 25%, if not 30%. And the other unique thing I should quickly mention, I believe that among businessmen and entrepreneurs, that the frequency of occurrence is probably 50% or higher. When I talked to Dr. Halliwell about that, he said, no, John, it's probably 75%. I agree with him.
So can you tell us a little bit about the superpowers that you said that a couple times? What when you're able to utilize it or work with it, what does it do that? How have you used it to when you're not neurotypical, let's say? How have you been able to use it to your advantage?
Obviously, academically, I wouldn't be looked at as a success story. They even questioned if I had a mental disorder. And so that was troubling to me, although I always had confidence that I was just as smart as the others, not smarter than, but as smart. So I felt that I had to start over new in the land of my heroes, Canada, with nothing. And I wanted to build a lumber mill. I did that. And so if I look back, once I understood that I was ADHD, then I understood, I said, I wrote in the book that I bought, Driven to Distraction, I wrote in Dutch, now I finally know who I am. And so what was I good at in school? I was a very good writer. Now I also have the reading issue, was dyslexic. I was not good in the writing part, so I'm not only ADHD but also dyslexia, and so and then the other thing that I was good at is at numbers, but attention and things that I did but had no interest in, I may as well not have been there. And so looking back, I should say this as well. A lot of people said to me later, you failed grade 7 3 times. Is it still bothering you? I said, yeah, it is. Really, it is. Still bothering me today. I should have left earlier.
Well said there.
So the point that I'm making is I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't give advice
Sure.
in regards to what to do. On the other hand, what I'm saying is that I believe that if somebody wants to watch my interview, Dr. Halliwell is a medical doctor, ADHD and dyslexia, so wrote 18 books, 5
Wow.
on distraction, and is known globally. I interviewed him on my podcast number 203, On the Brink, and very interesting is that I believe that it is the first thing to recognize is that the younger you are, the sooner we recognize it as not as a stigma attached to it, but rather than somebody being different. So the training and the schooling system has to be still changed, although there is more recognition of it and people try to do something about it. That's the one area. And then for younger people in particular, if you believe there is potentially ADHD, then the sooner you know that, then you can change their training, but give them confidence. It's not a liability. It may well be an asset. And so that is very, very important. And then from there and then, training and education will be modified to what is they are able to do. It's usually meaning that people with ADHD, I believe, are very good in areas where they have an interest. That's why some of the schooling now are focusing on what they call micro certification. That means that if they train for a certain profession, then focus on the actual profession and issues relating to that, rather than all that other stuff that really doesn't add to that. Is that focus on that area and then add the other things later or in some other format. And so that would do a number of things, because I believe that 30% of the population, male and females, are ADHD. And the females different in different ways for obvious reason than males. They show it different, but they still probably feel in the same category. And so gradually, slowly be adjusting to it. And I've made it part of my responsibility to speak out about it. I included in my presentations, and I gave a presentation here a couple of weeks ago, keynote presentation, about 300 people or so. And so during the presentation about entrepreneurship and all the other, I talk about ADHD. And then I had a number of people that put up their hands and said they never told anybody, but they are also ADHD. And by the time I'm done with my presentation, talking about it, what it means to me and why, there are a lot of people sitting there say, damn, I wish I had it too.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And that really is so important, is taking away the stigma of it so that you can be yourself. Like you were saying earlier, everyone is unique. And especially in this entrepreneurial world where there is still a little bit of shame of like, oh, you think you're going to just go out and do it by yourself. Well, you have this deficit. You can't do it. Actually, you can do it because of that. So that's such a beautiful message.
No question about that.
I love that. I think we should talk a little bit about the competitive bodybuilder in you. Can you speak to that, please, Mr.
Yes.
Competitive bodybuilder?
Yeah, so this is the book. This is me, actually. And Living Young, Dying Old. So what happens to everybody virtually, Tara, is that I was the same, so that for many, many years, at year end, I'm going to do this, that for next year, this, that, and we're going to buy a membership to a gym. And then we go for about 2 weeks, and we can find 100 reasons that's why we can't go. And then we start the same thing over and over again. So you need to get a shock that puts you into reality and saying, my body, very, very precious, very forgiving up to a certain point. And then it will do damage. And the last decade in your life is usually very, very difficult. So that being said, my wife is vegetarian. I didn't really listen well to her. I did to a certain extent, but not well enough. So then something happened to me in 2008 when I was already 68 years old. I got a case of diverticulitis that nearly killed me. And so for those that are watching us, diverticulitis is a rupture of the colon.
Right inside,
Or pain in the colon, and you take more vegetables, blah, 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 and then it clears up. In my case, it was a rupture.
Wow.
And all the toxins go through your body. And within 48 hours, unless you do something about it, maybe I'll kill you. So I went to the hospital. I got an operation, took 20 centimeters out of my colon. And that was in 2008. But at the same time, I realized I was overweight. I had gone to the gym and not to the gym. So I started to go to the gym at 68. Because I need to have a trainer, because I'm the kind of guy, I need to have my life is always appointments. I need an appointment. If I have an appointment, I go out of my way to meet the appointments. So I did that, got training, and gradually, after 6 years of training intensely, somebody came up to us and say, "Hey, John, have you ever thought about competing?" I said, "Me? Yeah, you." I said, "Okay, why not? It's a challenge, right? I like that." So I started then with my trainer, starting intensely training, and then compete in 2017 in Northern BC, bodybuilding and physique. I came in second in bodybuilding, third in physique, then qualified me for the provincials. And then in 2018, I again qualified provincially, physique second, bodybuilding third, qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds.
Wow.
And so then COVID came. And then
right in the prime of your career.
Right in the prime. So then after that kind of sellout, I've been now virtually for a year again training to get back to the Arnolds in 2025 when I'm 85. And this is the way I look. And so and I will be back at the Arnolds. And if I don't know how well you know Arnold, but if you meet him again the next time, say to him, John wants to go back to the Arnolds, and tell him that John said, "I'll be back." So that's what I do. So it's good for my health So I'm very cautious about diet.
Hmm.
I do all the shopping. My wife, vegetarian. I'm vegan, probably 90-10. And so when I go shopping, she trusts me. I know I go around the outside of the store. I pick
Mm.
up mainly vegetables. I make sure they are organic for sure. And then I stay out of the middle aisles because all those things, I don't know what is in them. And and what they put in the cans and all but so that's not good for us. And so that's what I do. And and then I'm very careful with my diet, understanding my body, and staying fit and healthy. And that's why I go to the gym. I need a goal, and that's why I keep getting myself in shape to compete. So that there's a couple of things. It keeps me physically healthy, and
Hmm.
it gives me energy. I love to go to the gym, and then I'm very careful with my diet because, as you all know, the body is an extremely forgiving part of us, very forgiving, but it only will take so much abuse, and that usually comes to the surface, if you wish, at the last decade of your life where you don't function anymore in a healthy way. And I intend to live till I'm 120.
How did you notice any other unintended benefits from getting into fitness and starting to work out regularly? As far as the mental clarity or any kind of focus or your ADHD, did it affect any other aspects, sleeping or any other aspects of your life?
All of that is very, very important as part of being healthy, fit, and working on that. Sleep is probably the first one. And sunshine. Be very fit, be very healthy. Sleep, very, very important. 8 to 9 hours a day, preferably. And then the other one is obviously fitness and diet, and some of the other ones. But that has been very, very important. The other part about it, Brian, is likely if you're fit, you feel better mentally, psychological. And so there's not a day that people don't go by, like what Sarah said earlier. Soon when she saw me, she said, I didn't think you could be 84 years old. And I always say 84 years young. I get that all the time. And then I have lots of energy. And so I can run circles around most people and still do that today. And then I'm excited about all the things that I do. And those are all directly, indirectly related to being fit, healthy, mentally, physically.
I'm so impressive. Yeah, absolutely. You talked a couple times about kind of overcoming challenges, the perseverance, the drive. How do you keep maintaining this kind of like dedication to wanting more and doing more? I guess, was that something that was always within you? Was there a mentor or somebody that inspired you to kind of get started and wanting to achieve all these things and kind of be the best? It seems like whenever you put your mind to something, you want to do it to your very best. Has that always been something innate within you?
So when I failed grade 3 and then failed grade 7 3 times, and everybody called me dumb and stupid, and all this stuff, right? And I became a laborer. I always knew I was just as good as all the others, not better than, but just as good. But I had to start over new. And that then, because my dream was to go to the lands of my heroes, that was an opportunity to start over new from the beginning with nothing. And so at one point, I hope you asked me what were the 3 books you took with
I
you.
was thinking that.
That will come in a minute. So I always knew that. So that's why I started with nothing other than 2 sets of clothes, my 3 books, and then very little money. And then the other dream that I had is build my own lumber mill. And I knew that I could do it. And I went through a rough time. It's all in my book, this one, Against All Odds. And it I have to make a modification because it's going and ongoing against all odds. And some very amazing things will happen still in the next couple of years. But the so that's what I did. And then, you know, went through a difficult time, starting from the ground up and being a cleanup man, being a lumber pilot. Then I had a little mill in Watson Lake in the Yukon Territory. Coming from Holland, which is a mild temperature, relatively
Yeah,
speaking.
that's way up there in the cold, huh?
Yeah, the coldest that I've seen is 62 below zero.
Oh, God bless you. Wow.
Yeah. So, but in any event, through all of it, but I always stayed positive. And I always believed in me, although I went through some difficult times. And at one point period, I drank more than I should have, and not around the street, but when and it's all in my book. I went through some difficult periods, so mentally and physically, and but at the end, it all kind of worked out. I stayed the course. I still am an optimist. I still feel the same about the things that are important in my life. But what is not important in my life is money. That's not the motivator, so.
Yeah. And it's almost ironic, right? How money comes when you follow your passion and you actually are true to yourself. So, and maybe you can speak to that afterwards, but I am curious about the 3 books. From the moment that you said it, I was like, oh, I need to know what those are. And maybe they have an impact and maybe they don't, but can you give us some context or explain or give the titles to those books?
There's 3 books that I had. I still have them today. The one was Management by Drucker. Very well recognized in terms of management. I wandered through it from back and over and over and over. The other one's Logical Thinking, all in Dutch. And then the other one was about Canada. Those were my books.
And how did they keep you going? And so, is there a tie between the mindset, the positivity, those books, and how you always seem to look at the best possible scenario that's just a little bit ahead of you? Like, how do you do that? Is that innate? Can you teach that?
It is finding the book from Dr. Halliwell, on about ADHD was pure coincidence, pure coincidence. And then the other part that you refer to, I have a lot of people that obviously I've been successful, even if I say it myself, and people say you're so lucky. The harder you work, the luckier you get. That's how it works. And then the other one is staying the course, where most people would throw in the towel, give up. I don't. Mm-hmm. I will persist and I will stay the course, and that's how I still move forward, even still today. And then the other part that's important to me is that I like to work with young people. I wrote another book about it, is that I saw a story on one of the U.S. channels, CNN, ABC, NBC, I forget which one. They said in the United States, 75% of people that work do not like their jobs. And 75% of the people that work are looking for another job. I think it's the same in Canada, actually. And then the other part is that if I give presentations to high schools, colleges, university, I always ask in a general sense, so, respectfully, what do you plan to do as you finish? I don't know. I said, respectfully again, maybe what you should do is do what I did. So if you want to be a truck driver, talk to truck drivers. What is involved? How about this? How about that? How about the other thing? You want to build houses, talk to somebody who builds houses. How about this? How about that? They all love to talk to you if you're interested in what they are doing. Maybe talk to doctors, talk to lawyers, talk to entrepreneurs for that matter. And so, but I say it is critically important that you find a direction, because you don't want to end up in a career that you don't like. Because if you're not happy in the things that you do, you take it home. It affects your relationships, your life, and all the other things. So I thought I have to write a book about it. So I wrote this one. Finding the passion, living the dream. And I've been working since I was 13, when I became a laborer in a furniture factory. And now I'm nearly 84. So I've been working for 70 years. So, John, my question to you, are you living the dream? I say, absolutely, every day.
That's beautiful. That is such great advice. We don't hear that often. If you're curious about a field or a profession, ask the people that are in it already. And they will usually give you an honest answer, because if somebody loves what they do, they're going to tell you the honest answer. And if they don't, they'll say, hey, I wish I did this, right? So 99% of the people want to help other people. And so
Absolutely.
such a great message to send is ask those that are already potentially doing something that you might want to do.
Yeah, and the other part about it, Sarah, is that I'm supposed to be a successful entrepreneur. So people are worried about asking me. I said, don't be, because all you do is you don't bar gender and say blah blah blah. No, be delicate about it. Send an email or whatever the communication channel is, and ask in a friendly way, but why and how. And if at some point you have an opportunity to maybe sit down for a coffee, and I would say, as you do, 99% of the people would say, I like that. And they would go out of the way to meet with you and just to share some of their ideas.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Like you said, write, send an email, send a maybe a thank you note. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
So important.
Could you spend a few moments, on a phone call with me? Absolutely. And also if you get rejected, reach out again, right? Find
What you really need to do is get them on a podcast and then ask them directly. So you talked about talking about to high school and college kids. What about the entrepreneurs or the solopreneurs or the people in our audience that want to you had this fearlessness about you. You had this hope of being successful, but nothing was going to stop you. So what do they need to do first to get started? What's your advice there to follow your passion? What's the first thing? Because a lot of times we find that that's the hardest part for them, kind of just taking that first step and closing their eyes and then just going for it. So what's your advice there?
My father worked in the lumber industry. My grandfather was a master carpenter. And then I started my career working in a furniture factory. I loved lumber. So that gave me direction. Then I worked, before I came to Canada, I was in the Air Force for 2 years. And then at the same time, around that time, before and after, I worked in a lumber company, and especially afterwards, with one of the biggest lumber companies in Holland, and worked in their auditing team, which was unique with my background. And that gave me an amazing amount of experience. From there on in, I knew what I was going to do. I looked up what was the opportunity for starting a lumber company in Canada. And so did I have the experience? Yes, I did. Did I understand lumber? Yes, I did. Then I worked in the industry here, first as a cleaner man, then a lumber pilot, then as shift foreman, and then managing a mill in the coldest place in Canada and the Yukon Territory for 5 years. And then I started the Brink group of Brink Forest Products, actually, first in 1975 with 3 employees and in a little mill in a whole new process that nobody had used before. And so I found the niche. And then now today, we're probably the largest secondary manufacturer. We're negotiating on a major acquisition today, which probably would make us the biggest forest company in British Columbia.
I love
Wow. Well, good luck to you with that.
Yeah.
When with people that are starting out, you said 3 employees. When they figured it out, their passion, when they have a direction and a goal that they're headed towards, what early on, what are the things that are really important? Surrounding yourself with good people, having a vision. Is it finding that niche, that market research? What are the first midterm steps that people need to start thinking about?
Anything initially, Brian, I was trying to find people that wanted to invest with me because I didn't have any money. So I got $25,000 from one of the banks here to start a lumber company. Are you crazy? How could that possibly be? And then I tried to get people that would invest or become shareholders. Nobody wanted to. And then so I started with 3 employees, and then I worked 24/7 as long as I could stay physically awake. I did everything, hands on, did everything. And then within a year, I started to become successful. I had all kinds of people that were interested in investing. I didn't need them then. And then from there on, we grew and on and on and on. I stayed the course. We went through all the ups and downs. It's all in my book. And then today, we are recognized as one of the most successful companies in the forest industry. And we intend to, again, double or triple in size, probably in the next 12 months, actually.
Thank you. I have one more question that's a little bit heavier. It goes back to when you mentioned possibly kind of being in a little bit of a hole, maybe drinking too much. So a lot of people that are in this space, they feel a lot, they go through a lot. What would you tell somebody that is stuck in either grief or pain or addiction or a bad habit? How do they get themselves out? How do they see the light? Do they feel it? Do they ask for help? What would you suggest?
Shara, very, very good question. Entrepreneurship and building companies is very, very hard on families and relationships. And then other things that happen in being aggressive, not in a bad sense, but wanting to grow. That is all kinds of people that are trying to slow you down or stop you. And that created difficulty for me mentally, physically, financially. So I went through all of that. So I lost one relationship because of entrepreneurship and taking so much demand. Then the other precious, my dad came out of the Second World War, came back after the war was over, but he had PTSD, never really recovered, and developed a drinking habit that was hard on the family and unfortunate. And I was swore to myself that if I ever would fall in that category, I hope somebody would wake me up and say, stop. And so when that slowly shifted in that area, that my wife that I have now for over 40 years, she slapped me around the head with a 2x4 and said, you're done. And so I was drinking, I was smoking, and then the other thing that I was on Xanax, that anxiety medicine that became addictive. And so, so when she dumped me, and I was deeply in love with her, so then within a week, after a number of months, I stopped everything in 1 week. I stopped drinking, I stopped smoking, and I stopped with Xanax. The hardest one to stop was Xanax. And so since that time, I never drank again, smoked again, or had Xanax. That is now, let me see, nearly 40 years ago. So anyway, so.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
God bless you. That's huge and very inspirational.
Yeah. Now, the other part that I was dealing with, I got counseling for the inner child. And for those that most people likely are familiar with it, but it was that fear during the Second World War when there was nobody around and everybody was in the same problems of losing my mother. She was the only one there. And that stayed with me. Still emotional to me.
Of course.
So I took counseling, and that changed everything to the positive.
Yeah, I think I would imagine that helps you break free to even greater parts of yourself.
That little boy was still there, right? And that was staying with me. And so actually, my now wife got counseling for some other issues in the marriage that were, that we had to do something about. And so we got counseling. And then the counselor said, I should talk to John alone about this issue. And both of them, and we agreed. And so that's what he did. extremely emotional,
Mm-hmm.
but it changed everything for the positive.
Yeah. That's so inspirational. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, like I'm so grateful that you're speaking to this, because I do work with a lot of people and they don't realize how much emotion they carry with it. And you honoring that is so grand and inspirational. And it really makes me see a future where we can open up to greater depth and the more dynamic growth of our deeper self. And that's why we do what we do: mind, body, spirit.
Yeah, the other part about it, Sarah, is that a lot of guys, tough guys in particular, I'm a tough guy because I've gone, seen it all, and done it all, but feel they are too, that men don't do that. They don't show their emotions, or they don't go to counseling. What do I need counseling for? Blah, 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 blah. And all this tough guy are thinking they need to be like that. Extremely unfortunate, because at the end of the day, it's all about relationships.
Yeah, and you are, aside from all of the wonderful things, the businessman, the bodybuilder, the philanthropist, you're a way shower for men and for healthy masculinity. So I am so grateful for you and the messages that you're sending to humanity. So I really truly appreciate that. One last question. I know your 3 books were amazing. Do you have one, aside from your amazing books, and we're going to post them all in our show notes, any book that has impacted you in a whole nother way, that really let you see things in another eye? Could be fiction, nonfiction, could be a well-known author or not. Anything that comes to mind off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head, but in particular about successful in business and relationships is important to me. So every so often I see something and say, yeah, I like that. I listen to a lot of people that give presentations, obviously, and I believe that part is important. The other one that I'm in the process of writing a book about communications, and because it is so critically important, not only. Communication. I was not good at that for a long time until I went into, and this would take us quite a bit to talk about, but I'm going to just mention it. Somebody dragged me to a Toastmasters meeting, and I was not good before that. I was good talking to maybe 3 people in my own company. After that, I was not very good. So I was at Toastmasters, and people can go Google it up and look for it. Is that I was there for 10 years and became a distinguished Toastmaster. That unlocked the ability to be a good communicator, an effective communicator. I am today, and so that's another part that opened the world for me and gave me the ability not only to be a very in demand global 1% podcaster, but also become a writer. And that's part of being the new communications is not only speaking, it's listening, understanding. The new communications is uh, podcasting and interacting in different ways. That is the new direction. That's what I'm now. My book on communications it's coming out in June of next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I am a Toastmaster member myself, so I encourage people to reach out to their local Toastmaster community or
I
chapter.
love it.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you
I'm
so
a
much.
DTM, which means the Distinguished Toastmaster is the highest level in Toastmasters, and I'm an advocate. I was in Toastmaster for 10 years, and I've seen many people go that had difficulty with communications that allows go to Toastmasters, and contrary to what people think, Toastmasters is not all about speaking. If people ask me about it, I said first and foremost is about listening. Secondly, is about speaking on your feet or articulating ideas, concepts on your feet. And then after that becomes becoming a good speaker on different prepared topics. And I'm a believer in it, and that has changed me as an individual. Between the Canadian Army, between going to Canada, then becoming recognizing ADHD and Toastmasters. This is me. So, but ADHD, it took me 50 years after I was left school at 13. It took me 50 years till I was 62 that I was diagnosed with ADHD and didn't understand it. But I knew I was different, but I had difficulty with it as to why. But it took me that long. And if I can do anything at all to help individuals, that's why I wrote the book, speak about it in all kinds of different settings, and then I believe that I have an obligation to do that.
Well, that's very appreciated, and it's so selfless. As you've evidenced throughout the episode, your philanthropy and your kind-heartedness, altruism is incredible. We always like to wrap with practical advice or guidance for our audience members, and you've given so much already, uninitiated and unprompted. What I was thinking, you came into weightlifting and really working out later in life.
Bodybuilding.
Maybe not. Since you're going to you're headed towards 120. Maybe it's not really later in life for you. It was midlife, but you. What about people that have kind of a defeatist, short-sighted, attitude where it's kind of too late for me. I'm already overweight. I have kids. I have the family. I don't have the time to. How do they get started? How do they get started and then pick up that first weight? What's your advice there? What's your motivational pitch for them?
Good question that you asked me that. Everybody just shouldn't go in and say, I want to become a bodybuilder or an Olympian. Just walk. Even if you walk half an hour a day, and you do that every day, not every day, maybe you start out with 3 days a week, then maybe 4 days a week. And the more you do it, the more you're going to like it. And then before you know it, Brian and Tara, you see some results and people will come up to you and saying, hey, Brian, you look good. How come you lost weight? You say, me? Really? Oh, you will like it. And then from there on in, all of a sudden, you start looking at things different. And then the other one to remember, every one of us is special. There's only one of us in this whole world, and you are special. And I believe that's how people, not more special than, but you are special individually. It's not, this is not right, that is not right, my clothes, blah, 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 and on and on and on. You are special. And conduct yourself as somebody that says, I'm at peace with who I am. And that's how I go through life.
I couldn't think of a better way to cap off this wonderful interview. John Brink, where can people get these books, get ready for the latest book that's going to come out in 25 and find out more about and connect with you online?
John A. Brink, John, John, middle name starts with an A, Arendt or Adam, Brink, BRINK.com. It's all there. And then my podcasting, I'm very active in podcasting. I probably have done about 320 where I'm hosting, and then probably guest on about 150 or so. And so I love it. That's the other one, and that is On the Brink with John A. Brink.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, John. I mean, you filled my heart. I know we are, divinely interconnected souls, and I really appreciate the messages that you send to people. They're so practical, so genuine, and so heart-based. So thank you so much.
Now, we nearly didn't do this interview because we had a little bit of time to get connected, but I really enjoyed it regardless of all of that.
Well, knowing what we know about you, you weren't going to be deterred one way or the other. I was expecting you to show up here or something. I'm ready for this interview. You were going to have it completed one way or the other because that's what you do. You persevere and you overcome, and you've always done that. And like you said, you have this inner drive. If you can help people and you know there's an audience for your message and you want to help them get better, you're going to make it happen because that's your calling. And it was a beautiful hour, and we were really blessed to have you on board. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Journey to Your Best Self podcast. We appreciate you being part of this community. For more resources, insights, and ways to connect, head over to youroneself.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and Overcast. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, keep aligning your mind, body, and spirit, and peace, love, and self-discovery.